Uh-huh. I hope you all had a relaxing evening. Not thinking about assessments. Smelling the flowers, having some tea or water or cold beer. Oh, no, sorry, I won't look at you. We went on an adventure last night to the mall,
Which mall?
the Wave Mall.
Yeah.
Very exciting. We went up the escalators, and then we went down the escalators, and we had an amazing food experience. What did we have? We had pizza. I had KFC.
Yes.
Chicken pizza. Highly recommended. It's very different. Instead of a
Punjabi
pizza with
style.
a crust,
Pizza Punjabi style.
I guess so. It was something I hadn't seen before. And good morning. Sat Shri Akal. It was an opportunity to share food with my colleagues as well as to try something different. And if you've ever had chicken cacciatore before, that's kind of what it reminded me of, like an Italian chicken dish. Cheese, vegetables. No? What is the new dish I'm supposed to try? Dosa.
It's a South Indian.
That's the next step.
That's South Indian.
Yes, rice flour roti. Yeah, kind of.
We are feeling jealous.
Oh, okay. Well, then I should be taking all of you out. For
Yeah.
supper, right? Dr. Patrick always pays, so I will offer to take everybody out for supper. Just don't let him know until the bill comes.
He'll never
And we
pay.
will just slide it across to him and then he can take care of things. Yeah. Anyway, happy to be here. The birds, as I was telling the students this morning, the birds decided to get up a little earlier today. So at 5:45, they began gathering at my window and singing to me. It was beautiful. And they were like a choir of squawking birds. So I've already been up for about 4.5 hours. And I will try my best to maintain my usual enthusiasm and focus today. But yes, it was another good experience with the birds. Yesterday was a long day. I mean, it was still 24 hours. Every day is 24 hours, but I was so impressed with the work that you put in. We spent a lot of time yesterday talking about assessment and learning outcomes, and good discussion and passion flowed to the surface, and people were very interested in what we were doing. That will set the foundation for a lot of the work that we will do today around curriculum mapping and then course planning. So those are our two themes for today. My hope is that we will have shorter sessions in the morning, shorter sessions in the afternoon, give you a little bit longer break over the lunch hour, and then get you out of here earlier today.
Perfect.
Is that all right? Okay, unless you wish to stay until 7 p.m. tonight. Like I can arrange that. No, okay. I think that's just fair to you, and I want to honor your time, and I know that many of you are involved in a lot of different things throughout the day. So that's I took you like a wet rag and twisted all the juice out of you yesterday, and today I'm gonna put you back in the water and let you soak up some of that, and maybe not be as busy as we were yesterday. So that's my thank you. You can see I posted some of the great pictures of you in action. I'll make sure I'll share those with the dean so they know how hard you've been working and how engaged you've been, and the students can use those for their scholarship. So you can send them away and say, look at me, I'm a scholar, I'm working with faculty and I am learning and I am helping the process, and maybe that gets you an opportunity to travel around the world and share your knowledge with other people. I am curious though, what thoughts did you have when you left yesterday about assessment? Was there clarity in your mind?
Yeah.
There's something, yesterday you said invigorated when you left on the first day. Were you also invigorated yesterday when you left?
Yeah.
Good. I admire your ability to be invigorated after a very long day. What about other folks? Thoughts about yesterday?
It was all good. We enjoyed.
Okay.
So yeah, but as we'll try to do that in a practical way, then I think we will be more confident.
Yes.
How we can assess.
So the time to put it into action.
Yes, that would be, I think, more reflective of what we have learned.
And that was a theme that you talked about yesterday in regards to your students and the learning. Doesn't make as much sense until they're actually doing it. And again, that's the choices that you make around assessment and the ability to put it into practice. And you're right. You probably won't get a chance to do that right away, but when you do, hopefully that will be able to be something. You remember the 3 types of assessment?
Formative.
Formative, submissive.
Okay. Of, and, for.
Plus-
Yeah. Of, as, and for. Right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sat Shri Akal.
Shukal.
Summative, formative. So there's 5 things you learned. My gosh, this class is doing great. What about evaluation versus assessment? Remember the
Assessment
difference?
is ongoing.
Yes.
Evaluation is crispy, in the end.
Yes. Yeah, it's crispy when you crisp up the students at the end with a nice final exam. Right? I read your exam suggestion that you emailed me this morning. People figure it all out and then you crisp them up at the end. Is that a word that you use all the time, or is it just because he used it and then all of a sudden
No,
it has evolved from our
No.
gathering?
it's
Yeah.
rare.
It's rare. He's phoning you and telling you not to use the word. I think that's what's going on. Was there anything that when you walked out of here yesterday, you were thinking, not really sure, or still need to know more about it?
Upcoming. Okay, marathon. I've got PhD defense tomorrow.
Okay.
So my student just called. I'll have to go for 10 minutes maybe.
Okay,
Thanks.
oh, good. That's why we're here, for students.
She came all the way from Mumbai.
Wow. Tell her to say hi. Okay. Anything that you were wondering about when you left here yesterday?
I think the basic thing is how we can apply these things, because the system, especially in our college, not in the other colleges, it might be more flexible there, but here it is very tight system is there, governed by the VCI and all those things. So that is the issue which always concerns when we talk of to bring about any change.
It's a good idea, but the system doesn't let you do it.
Our system is very rigid actually, it's not flexible, okay, you can do this, you can do this. And everything is defined by some other person, you have to just follow.
Well, I was thinking about that as well when I left. And I was thinking of the value of some of the activities that we did yesterday in terms of, I sensed people's frustration and I sensed people's willingness to make changes, but knowing that a lot of those changes are not possible. I thought, was that a waste of people's time in some ways? because it is so rigid. And I thought, well, if we never talk about it, we're never going to have change. If we never discuss it and open people's eyes to new ideas and prepare them for when those opportunities come, we won't have change. So that's how I found peace at the end of the day, because I did leave here thinking exactly what you've just articulated. Does it make sense to show someone how to dance when they're never going to get on the dance floor? But I'm hopeful that as things change and progress, even very slowly, that when leadership comes to its senses and starts to involve teachers in the decision making, that you will be prepared to take on those leadership roles.
Actually, decisions even are not taken by the university as far as veterinary science is concerned. They are being taken at national level in the parliament.
Mhm.
There is very little that can be changed here.
And what did we say? 50,000 Rotarians in charge of everything that's going on. So how do we get teachers involved in that process? to make that change.
They get ideas from all the universities, but when they talk at the national level, it's a very diverse situation.
Mhm.
Some universities are at a different level, others are at different level. There is quite variation here. So all these things matter.
Mhm.
And when the decision is taken, they take into account the situation in the whole country, what is feasible, what is not feasible. So some of the requirements here which are written in this BCI booklet, so even these things are not being done today. There's some obsolete equipment is there which is written in these, all the
It's still there.
still there,
Mhm.
not used.
But you have it,
We have to
because
show them.
it's on the list, right?
But
And
the,
when they come and do their
We
assessment,
have to show them.
We have to keep remnants of those.
yeah,
So every year when they come for assessment, we show them the trusted equipment we have here.
Have it.
our prized possessions.
your prized possession, be in the museum. Yeah. So that's this part of the
Minimal,
act, right?
minimal
With
requirements.
all the scores and stuff like that.
Yes.
I find it's really interesting on this, and I'm glad that you alluded to it. Is that teaching is on here. So there is a section on teaching. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. You've all memorized it like I have. as
Oh,
well.
yes.
But they're talking about, number of faculty, qualifications.
A number of faculty, it's good idea because here there are private colleges where they don't have so much faculty.
Mhm,
That restriction is helpful to maintain standards to some extent.
mhm.
But some other things, they are not very relevant, especially they might change in this when they revise it.
Mhm. Yeah, and in category 6 under academic activities, following the prescribed syllabus, following the prescribed calendar. Academic atmosphere. I'm not sure what that means. Is that they do air samples or something like that to determine that the air is suitably thin? Innovative teaching methodologies. Very limited in terms of their scoring system on here. Extracurricular activities. But not necessarily. Oh, here's one under 10. Any other institution. So it's got its own kind of throwaway category. CVE or refresher course or other training, symposium or seminar or workshop. So again, you have to kind of burrow into this whole document to find any kind of reference to academic work, and a lot of it is based on qualifications or based on number of students. Even though they talk about innovation, it doesn't feel like innovation is.
This is drafted by the person who have only veterinary science background. I think they should also consult someone from education side
Yeah.
also.
I agree, but I'm biased, right? So. Yeah, absolutely. I again,
ਪ੍ਰਾਈਵੇਟ ਕਾਲਜਾਂ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਨਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਵੇਟ ਕਾਲਜ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਕਮਰੇ ਚ ਖੋਲ ਲੈਣੇ ਕਾਲਜ।
ਹਾਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਤਾਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਹੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਰਾਜਸਥਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ।
ਰਾਜਸਥਾਨ ਚ ਬੁਰਾ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ।
ਮੇਰਾ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ ਸੀ PhD 0 ਨੰਬਰ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਗਈ ਯਾਨੀ ਸੀ ਮੈਰਿਟ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਵੇਟ
0 ਨੰਬਰ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਲਿਖਣਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ।
well, I'm glad that we talked a bit about that today, and I am not discouraged. And I hope that you are not discouraged about the opportunities for change, because there is some change happening.
That is of course in the long run something is going to change.
I hope so.
Change is at local level, at the institutional level. It's not like uniform throughout the country. So change is what we are trying to do with the teaching. That's it. We cannot, as we discussed yesterday, we cannot change the assessment, the way of assessment. So the change is only at the level what we are doing actually. That's it.
And this is the #1 vet college though, right?
Yeah.
So if the #1 vet college starts to make change, maybe other people aspire to take your place as #1, right? They want to model, they want to emulate the success that's happening here. And maybe that's a way of having some bottom-up change, which may not be at the national level, but may find itself in pockets of progressive institutions like this one. And again, slowly making change. But working outside of the system is another way of making change. Sometimes we work within the system, and if it's a broken system or a flawed system, we have to move outside of it. We talked about, what's in the curriculum that we evaluate and what's that co-curricular. So that was part of our discussion yesterday. There are things that you value that aren't in the curriculum, but you impress upon your students to say, it may not say it here, but it's really important for you as to be a successful veterinarian to be able to have these skills. So I see evidence of what's going on, and I think that's a testament to the commitment of this group to try to make that change, but it's gonna take time. I just offered for you to take everybody out for supper, pizza.
Okay, that's fine.
Before you got here.
Maybe tonight,
Oh, I said that you were kind enough to
evening.
take me to KFC yesterday. Okay, let's get into curriculum mapping, and thank you for the discussion to start today. I'm very grateful for that. Next slide, please. Thank you. There you go. I think this is just a lovely image. So you'll notice that a lot of my slides have colors and design and things like that. And this was one that I thought was very appropriate for what we're doing, because there is a complex interrelationship between many of the things that we will talk about today. We will refer to some of the key topics that we've addressed in the previous days. So Dr. Harmon, you will have to, if there's something that we just go by very quickly and doesn't make sense, you have to tell me to stop, and we will go through it. But it's really one of the areas that this university is trying to reflect on what is being taught, starting at those minimum standards that are kind of the non-negotiable, and then moving through and trying to determine what content do the students need to be successful. And so we have our expert with us today, who's going to be, I don't know where Gertrude went. He was supposed to be the other expert and he left. So I don't know. So it's your sole responsibility for what goes on today. But this university is trying to be innovative, and to do that, this process has to take place. So if you could go to the next slide. So this is what we will do today. And I mentioned it is a little lighter content, a little less engaging in terms of the intensity that we had yesterday. But I want to just go through a basic introduction to curriculum mapping. What that means is you'll have a chance to understand it better, maybe communicate it with your colleagues, people in your departments, and think about the big picture differently. So that's why I'll go through some basic stuff, some definitions and those kinds of things so you understand it. I'm going to show you some examples of how it being curriculum mapping can happen at a number of different levels, and how it can be very simple and how it can be very complex. And so next week, when we have a follow-up session, we'll actually look at some of the data. Now, how many data points did you say you have collected?
Data points?
Yes.
6 or 7 graphs.
Okay, 6 or 7 graphs, but how much of the individual pieces of information have formed those graphs? It's in the thousands, right? How many?
2,000 something.
Yes. So we can go from very little,
2,619 lectures
yes, to
of 18 courses.
thousands of pieces of information. And I'm going to just slowly take you through, and you can see why the simple ones might be helpful in certain situations, but the more complex ones, as we get through them, allow you to really analyze at a granular level what is going on in your program. The other thing is, how can you use it? How can you use curriculum mapping? And many of the people in this room, if not all of you, are in leadership and important positions. You will be asked to contribute to this redesign and this reimagining of what's going on. So again, if you have that information, you're able to be successful, and you're able to bring your people in your departments and in your disciplines together to contribute to that larger change that's happening. So that's what I'm hoping we get to today. I sure hope so. Next slide, please. I haven't even tried this. Should I try the clicker? see if it works?
You said happy.
You think it works? Oh, it does work.
Hmm.
Okay, so I can do my own clicking. I've talked a bit about it. We've talked a bit about it. Maybe you've been engaged in it, but when you saw the list and did you see the list of topics that were going to be part of the academy? Yeah, it was circulated. What did you think of when you saw that curriculum mapping was on the list?
Like how many of our lectures overlap with how many of your lectures?
Okay,
And so that to achieve a similar outcome.
okay. So you're looking at what do I do and how does it interact with other?
No. We are looking, what is the commonality?
Oh, okay.
So that are we overdoing something or underdoing some aspect?
Good.
And what are the common points in our syllabus with your syllabus?
Excellent.
What are the differences also?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. The resolution.
So what are the different topics? For example, there are different topics in those curriculum
Mhm.
which we mapped. Was not I don't know whether it was a mapping. So what we did in that assignment actually.
Okay, yeah. Similar to that, the idea of, what are we actually doing
And what
at the individual level?
yes.
Good. And that's a really important kind of local aspect of curriculum mapping.
Yes.
Good. Other thoughts?
I think it's indexing or finding out the gaps in academics and competencies.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, very important as well. So we've got some really good ideas here about, do our systems work? What are we actually teaching? Where are the gaps? If we say we are doing something and we find out we're not doing it, then that might be a shock to people. That's when you go, oh, I thought you were teaching it. No, I thought you were teaching. Oh, I thought you, and then suddenly no one is teaching it, right? When you have responsibility spread out among too many people, then assumptions get made, and sometimes those assumptions are not very helpful.
and how many times the same thing is repeated?
Oh, yep.
Like I may be teaching something, the medicine people may be teaching the same topic.
Mhm.
So how many times it is, that shows its importance or or it should be decreased.
Yeah.
The frequency of teaching.
I think the final outcome is there. How you are achieving the final outcome, all the courses
Mhm.
taught. Are you able to achieve
Competencies
the
to be
final
achieved.
outcome?
Yeah. Are they contributing to it? Is there alignment throughout? Yeah.
How much is individually the department wise is contributing, to make the final end meet,
Mhm.
that the students are completed to achieve what you say are pillars.
And when we talk about this specifically about the program here next week, I'm gonna be so excited about next week. It's gonna be interesting to see how one department contributes a lot. And then there's one at the other end. I mean, there's most in the middle, but based on the discipline, based on the content, it may make sense for one department to not contribute as much because they have such a narrow focus. But then the other departments could be confident that, okay, if they've got it, we don't have to teach it because that is their reason of existence. But you're right, it is looking at those different things and trying to figure out.
That is true, but I feel there is one more thing. That either we have to add the competency, that this competency which is missed
Mm,
should be added, so that the final outcome is also. It's my view.
yes, well, no,
Absolutely my view.
and that's important. That's what we're here to talk about is
Like,
how your
sir is very
perception.
much inclined towards clinics.
Yes,
I'm not that much inclined towards clinics.
Yeah.
Veterinary involves nutrition, veterinary also involves germplasm, conservation.
Mhm.
Who will conserve germplasm if veterinaries are not there? Only clinics.
Yeah.
I don't agree.
Extension also.
Competencies for a graduate at the North America and in Indian context are little different.
Mhm.
You have a graduate which is called a clinician.
Mhm.
He has to just take care of the health.
Yeah.
Here we have management aspect as well.
We have animal
Because
husbandry.
our degree is BVSC and AH, animal husbandry,
He also includes.
Bachelor of Veterinary Science and Animal Husbandry, which is not there in your degree, animal husbandry.
yes.
In most of the European countries, their competencies are based on the more towards veterinary medicine. more towards clinical side.
Mhm.
But here, competency should be like, on the basis of like animal production and, paraclinical, clinical. So that should be including all these aspects.
So when we're talking about curriculum mapping, we need to make sure in the Indian context or the Punjabi context.
No, Indian context, Punjab is same as,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
everywhere in the, and all the states have got same.
yes.
Correct.
See, I keep wanting you to change and I need to like just say, okay, it's only Indian number, it can't be Punjab. But when I think of curriculum mapping and I'm asking you what you see it being, and I'm really happy to hear the responses that, and I can do my own slide, okay. So this is what we do when we engage in this process. Okay? We examine the role of different elements of learning environments as they build towards the shared learning outcomes. So that's a fancy way of saying, how are the departments contributing to what we all say that we're doing as a college? And what we are doing is working collectively. And that's a really important part about curriculum mapping, is that you may look at your own course or you may look at your own specialization and be knowledgeable and passionate about it, but it still is that coming together. And it is very holistic in terms of what's going on. You can curriculum map part of your program, but that doesn't give the whole picture. You have to look at the whole picture. And that's why we have thousands of lectures and thousands of course syllabi to look through. And I've done lots of this at my own institution. And oftentimes when we would come together as a department and we would map our own department, and then we would say, well, what are the other people doing? Like, you are almost working in isolation until you get everybody together. That's that understanding aspect and that idea of how things are being assessed and how we can say confidently to those folks that come with the end pages here on their clipboards and are looking at obsolete material, but we can also say that what we're teaching, we're confident that it's being delivered, and here's the evidence that we're doing so. This is another really important one. It's the relationships that exist. And when we have that entire set of learning outcomes mapped, then we say, oh, okay, you've got that part, then I've got this part. If you're going to introduce it, we'll reinforce it. We'll bring the students to mastery. I mean, you see yourself in that process as part of a trusting relationship with the other departments. And sometimes that's difficult to do. Right? Because the scientists don't trust the clinicians and the paraclinicians don't trust anybody. And no, I'm just kidding. I don't. But it's really important to build those relationships so that you can have that level of trust to know that your program is successful. And there's no better feeling when you come together and you understand that everyone is pushing in the right direction. Not always in a straight line, because that's not the way the world works.
How many departments are there in your school? Vet school? 4. And here,
Or my vet school.
yeah,
I don't know.
maybe 5.
You have asked people, how many departments are there? You just ask.
I think 5, not more.
5, 4 or 5.
5.
Yeah.
And here,
18.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that creates sort of barriers.
Yeah. Opportunities. Look at the glass is almost full.
Yes.
Your glass is empty. Here, let's be friends. Let me give you some of my water.
Okay, give me-
And then we'll, right? Yes.
I mean, sometimes, as he said, I mean, that creates sort of divisions also. Let us be realistic. Because I may think my subject is, everything is interrelated, you know.
Yes.
I would like to work with clinicians so that I can have a better idea what should I be teaching, instead of being just in solitary confinement within my boundaries.
Yeah.
Within my boundaries.
And that's what
We
this
should not
does.
be creating boundaries.
No, and that's what this is intended to do.
Yeah.
There
So
are
you agree with me, right?
Well, I'm saying in a
Okay.
positive way,
Okay.
I agree with you.
Okay.
But I'm saying that we have departments for a reason. We have local expertise and we have groups of
Then
people
why?
that work together.
Okay.
But if we're not all working towards the same end goal, then you don't have a college.
Yeah.
You don't have a university, right?
We
You
should have a feeling that
entrepreneurs, and that doesn't allow people to be successful. It also doesn't allow you to stay accredited. as well.
everything
Yeah.
should be related.
I think so.
Yeah.
And this process will help. Even if you don't spend, like, I'm not sure how much time this group would normally spend together. Like, do you see each other all on a regular basis? No,
No.
not really?
Not
Just
really.
like across, hey,
Like
you're
I've got,
driving your scooter through
I've
the
got my
traffic and stuff?
PhD students exam tomorrow. Maybe somebody from biochemistry or
Yeah.
physiology will come only then.
Yeah.
Not regularly.
So if you don't have that time to meet, if you have a document, at least you can see yourself in that document. And then it also establishes those relationships and where those bonds are stronger, because between some departments, they will be stronger.
Mhm.
Others, they will be weak, but there will still be those connections. Oh. This is the most common one, form of curriculum mapping. It's just how does a course align with what's going on? So it's not, we're not diving much deeper than this. 100, do you have 100 level classes for first years? Or 200? Do you have a number with them? What's that?
100.
100, okay. So this 100 level class fits in this particular spot. Okay, I'm teaching that class. I understand where I am in the bigger picture. It's not asking about anything else. It's just where does my course title and content fit? And that's, again, a way of mapping at a really high level where things go. Okay, this is where I fit. And it's really helpful for students when you're doing your planning. I have seen a thing called a major map. That's what it's called. I was going to call it the master map, a major map. So if someone is going through a university program and they say, this is my major or my area of specialization, then there's actually a way that you can take all of the courses you offer and then just highlight the ones that they would take throughout. It's an amazing thing. I should try to find one and send it. But those are, again, very high level. It has all of your courses on there, but your students don't take every single course that you offer, especially when we're talking about undergrad and master's and PhD students. But it is a way of just seeing how the pieces fit together, how you might flow through. And I don't know about you, but when we do program change at my university,
That's what we are having in PG level, I think.
Mm.
For major, minor and sporting.
yeah,
We
Yeah.
have courses like major,
Yeah.
and then we have minor, and then we have sporting courses.
And student has got a
Okay.
choice.
Yeah.
Which subject, other subject, minor or supporting you want to
Okay.
take.
good. So a student would be able to look at that and make sense of their
Yeah,
learning.
according to their research
Not
program,
at UG
what
level.
Yeah.
they can do it. It's not in UG level.
Okay.
It's in
No
PG and
choice.
PhD level.
Okay.
PG and PhD.
Okay, well, at USaS, we have it at our UG level. So people who are thinking of even just starting a program can look at it and go, okay, this, over the next 4 years, I will take this class, I will take this class, I will take this class.
Here, there's no choice like that in UG.
No,
No.
you just take.
And nobody will come to the
Yes.
clinical class.
And the other thing is that
Nobody will go to
students
the.
over there, they are also involved in some
Co-curricular activities.
no, sir, they are also involved in some kind of research.
Yeah.
So during their.
In their graduate.
When they are
Yeah.
off from their studies, they can participate in research and
Yeah.
they get pay for that. They're paid for that.
Yeah, we have a fairly strong undergrad research program, which is.
Here, there's nothing like that.
Yeah. Okay, so, at least then it would be the same for everybody. So if you show them the classes to take, then I guess there isn't much choice. You just sign up and then you come out the other end at the undergraduate level.
At undergraduate
Yeah.
level, everything has to be taken by the student.
Just making sure I've got through all this. Okay, so I've already asked you a bit about curriculum mapping, but what about program review? So it's a little bit different language. Do you have, like when the assessors
We
come
have-
here, have you all
They ask
like
for our input.
spoken to them? Did
Yeah.
they interview you? Did you,
They ask
or is it
us,
just the department heads and the deans?
no. The dean will ask the head and head will convene meeting of the department and they'll give their input, but nobody, I mean, it doesn't go up much, I think.
Yeah.
For example, I've been trying for 10 years. Okay, please introduce practical, these, but nothing happened. So,
So you're familiar with people consulting with you and asking
Yeah.
for some kind of feedback on what's going on. Because it's a part of some process, some mysterious black box or phantom box or whatever, which is supposed to determine what's going on, okay? The reason I use the terminology program review is because that's something that seems to happen or people feel like it's happened regularly with them. But when it comes to curriculum mapping, they say, well, I've never done that before, I don't understand it. But there are a lot of similarities and overlap.
I think everybody here will agree with me that BCI, I mean, the people who are making the syllabi curriculum, they are simply, I mean, undergrads, some of them, BVSC and AH. And
We can't say that it's because the input goes from the colleges.
yeah, it
Might
goes,
have.
but it never percolates.
No, it's
I need to understand
Oh, okay.
what is programming.
So program review is,
How can a BVSC decide your PhD level, postdoc maybe? How can he decide what you are supposed to teach?
that's why we said that teacher should have a say.
Huh?
Decide our fate.
That's
Huh? One person?
okay, no, I had a question over here
should
about,
have a say.
I think Dr. Rajneesh can, yeah. How can a BVSC and AH student, a doctor sitting in VCI decide what you are supposed to teach? How does he know about you?
So,
Okay.
साल का निकलता है यार।
Democracy is.
Huh?
IAS 20 साल का होता है सेक्रेटरी या IAS सेक्रेटरी लेवल 25 के बियॉन्ड तो सेक्रेटरी बनता ही नहीं है
ਸਰ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਇਨਪੁਟ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੀ ਆ
दे आर ऑल सिटिंग देयर
ਤੇ ਕੰਪਾਈਲ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਛੱਡਦਾ
I've been trying for 15 years, many times I said, but nothing happened. That's like, wait, why are they like change position?
program reviewing I think it helps.
Dr. Pathak, you sent
For example,
your suggestions. Were they incorporated ever?
List.
okay,
like
I think you had an answer to
No.
Dr. Moody's question.
but I understood from program review that how it helps to I think enhance the existing knowledge and whether in my opinion whether this course should be first then this course should be second. Like I will give you example means
Okay, wait till he's listening.
when we were teaching
Oh, that's fine.
सॉरी
So you remember everybody's name?
I have a cheat sheet. I'm trying to remember everybody's.
सॉरी
Go ahead.
so like there is a topic in parasitology called parasitic immunity.
Okay.
Immunity against parasites. So previously when we were teaching, so we have to teach them basic immunology also first. Then we were doing the parasitic immunity. But when this system changed, now the students already have the immunological course done with the microbiology in the second year.
यस
Previously micro and para were in the third year.
यस
So it was difficult for us and it consumed a lot of the lecture. So that change, I think, in my opinion, was possible only when they reviewed.
Okay.
Okay, now they have the knowledge of the newer batches, they have the knowledge of inflammation, they have the knowledge of the immunology. So our workload is decreased. So we give more emphasis on the parasitic immunity. So it helps.
Perfect. So,
Problem is that in this system,
yes.
no whole of the parasitology and pharmacology they are in the same year and our course contents are okay, they are good, but the volume of the content is very much which is difficult for the student to handle.
Right. That's what I was saying yesterday.
So our system was that we studied parasitology in 2 years, pharmacology in 2 years,
Yeah.
microbiology in 2 years, so that was a very good.
And anatomy also.
Anatomy
It's very difficult.
anatomy also 2 years. So
And by the time they go into clinics, they forget.
So program review
what I got,
addresses some of those issues because the idea is you're talking to the constituents, to all the people who are involved in the program. So you may talk to the students and they say, too much work. Or you may talk to the faculty and they say, this should be split up over 2 years, or it should be taught concurrently because they are so busy. So program review is more like interviewing people about their experiences with the program. Whereas curriculum mapping is taking things, sometimes non-negotiable learning outcomes, for example, and showing you where they happen. So when you ask people about their experiences, so if we ask the students about their experiences, they will be able to tell us or articulate what that journey through all those courses is like. So just because we have a 100 and a 200 and a 300, they may say, well, the 100 is, I didn't like it because we did this. Maybe you could shift some of that content into the 200 and make it a little more palatable. So that's what the program review process is like.
So you agree, when you review the degree.
Yeah.
Degree programs that.
Yeah.
Program review.
Yeah.
Courses are mapping.
Yes.
There is only one parasitology course at WCB.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
Only one.
yeah.
We're having, I think, 4.
Or because parasitic are the problems of tropical and subtropical.
Okay.
They are not having that much problem.
But
In medicals, there is no department.
Should be.
it should be.
In medicals, MBBS, there is no separate department of parasitology. Problem is that the parasitology was taught by the zoologist people first in this country. So they give more emphasis towards the morphology. Okay, so I told you there is external system also. So it's recording.
Yes.
Okay, so there is external system also. So we have to meet certain standards also. But when I'm taking the classes, I am giving them PPTs also these days. So the points which as a veterinarian, they should remember in the field because they have to perform postmortem, they have to go for the electro-legal cases. So those points you can highlight.
Yes.
This is what I'm doing.
That's what they exactly need to know.
Exactly, I agree.
That should be, I think, we should focus more on that.
But there is external system also, na? You cannot
Yes,
say
we
that.
cannot do
It's
that.
written that it is fasciola. So fasciola means anything.
Actually,
It's with every discipline.
It's,
But I
like
want to say it should be.
Dr. Rajneesh, like I'm a pharmacologist, I mean, I feel that the syllabus, pharmacology and toxicology syllabus is actually twice whatever is required. Twice of the need.
Yeah.
So the
there-
students at the end of the, course, 160 lectures for pharma. They're all,
So that's way too many.
it's all, mixed up.
Well, and that's what we're hopefully going to get you to, as we understand this process, is the chance to discuss.
160 lectures.
And this is the relationship building we're talking about. So
160
You're saying, we need this, we're saying.
Relationship building will be there because we are on the same floor
Yeah.
and in the same year.
Sir, India is leader in pharmacy, sir.
Huh?
It makes a
India
difference.
is leader in pharmacy.
Pardon?
The course content, if it cannot be changed, it can be made interesting.
Yeah.
This is my opinion.
India is leader in
I
pharmacy.
agree.
Pharmacy and pharmacology are totally different.
We cannot,
Totally different.
we can improve it. That's all.
you just can manufacture the drug.
So I appreciate your question, and I think it led us to some other discussions, but it's all, again, we're the same way yesterday, we tried to differentiate between evaluation and assessment. Now we're trying to get away from, okay, are we just doing a program review? Or are we mapping? Because they're different. And the mapping part is much more specific. So if I go to this, yes, it is a way of reviewing a large scale process. But we are checking to say if what we do is actually happening. So when the dean goes to, or the associate dean goes to a symposium and shares about the program, and he says, we are doing this, we are doing that, he can do it with confidence because you have looked at the courses and you've looked at your learning outcomes and you have ensured that maybe there is duplication, maybe there's a lot, but at least you are teaching the basics of the things that you need. And this process can be very simple. And as I mentioned before, it can be very, very complex. There can be a lot of data involved. It examines curricular and co-curricular learning. So as we make it more detailed, we can say, okay, Indian government, we are teaching all the things that you say we need to teach. But here, we also feel that this is necessary. We feel that this is necessary. So we're going beyond the minimum and we could add those co-curricular. Co-curricular doesn't always mean that they get a grade at the end. They may just get a certificate of completion. They may just get your blessing that, yes, this is a good skill to have. But if you want credit for doing that work as an institution, then you need to ensure that it exists on your curriculum map somewhere. And you can be confident to say, oh, well, when you came to us and said, you want us to do more of this, well, look at our curriculum map. We're already doing that. We are taking the initiative. We're going beyond those minimum expectations. The other thing, as I mentioned before, it's really helpful to see how your students are developing, and it's a way of tracking them. So if you have, as you've mentioned, students, they don't have to choose classes. they sign up, all their classes are chosen for them, right? Perfect. So I don't have to worry about that. The worst thing I have in my program is like, oh, well, why are you taking a third year class when you're in first year? You should, because at my university, people can jump around and.
It is a
and
totally
education
different
is
system.
different, yes.
Different system.
So I would love that all of my students, I knew that they had learned exactly this from the year before. I think that's a good system that you have.
For example.
But it helps us, just a sec, no, I want to get through this one.
Sure.
Is that if we are looking at how our students are doing collectively, then we can say, okay, as they develop through first year, they're within a window. So 80% of our students are doing okay. We've got 10% that maybe struggle, 10% that are exceeding. Are we happy with that? And if they move on to year 2, do we still have that 80%, or does the window start to get a little smaller and we have 50 and then we have 25 and 25 as outliers on our curves? So those kinds of things you're looking at, how they develop. I mean, ideally you'd want 100%, 100%, 100%, and then get to internship. And then again, they are doing very well as they get to internship, but we know that students are unique individuals.
Day before yesterday, you asked how many internships you have. In your country, people have multiple internships. This institute, that institute, and third also. And here it is just one.
Yes.
So it's totally different. Like their departments, anatomy department, in your country, they have got a course, surgical anatomy, where the surgeon is also there, anatomist is also there. Here they teach anatomy in the first year and surgery is in the third year. By the time everything is gone, forgotten. So it's quite different system.
Well, and that's what you want to check. You want to ensure that they're developing and that if someone comes through, they are not stalled. And then they have to wait a year and a half to get back on it. You want to see that they have a path, that they're continually moving. They have momentum, right? Just like a shark. What happens if the shark stops moving?
Shark?
A shark? They
Shark.
die, right? If they don't keep moving, they die. So that's what you want. You're all sharks. We want you to keep moving so that you can live and grow and be successful. The other thing is that when you're revising your program, and you already talked about it, some of you have talked about it already, you look at your curriculum map and you say, oh, we have way too much pharmacology.
Yeah.
Why do we have so much? Why do we even do No, I'm just kidding. But it allows you to make those changes.
welcome.
We need more surgery, less pharmacology. How do we move those classes around? Really good. And then that notion of alignment. You can look at a document and you can say, okay, that looks like everything fits the way it's supposed to. And it's not scientific, but it's another piece of data that helps you understand how your program is coming together. When you are done your curriculum map, I promise you will get done, okay? You will get done someday. These are some questions that can be answered. It's a beautiful thing when it's done. If you have the graphs, if you have the other information, because we look at this and we are all brilliant people. And we say, why do we do this before that? That makes no sense. When it's laid out in front of you, it's really easy to have things just jump off the map and say, wait a minute, that is out of order. We should be doing this, this, and this. And again, it comes back to that communication and that ability to see what's going on and how things flow through. And when you build a house, you have an initial plan.
Drawing.
Right? You have the schematics and you put it all together and it's great. And then someone in your house says, oh, we need another bedroom. Okay, so you build another bedroom, you put it on the side. And then someone says, oh, we need a bathroom, another bathroom. So you find a spot and you kind of tack it on the side. Oh, we need a second floor. Oh my gosh. So we put a second floor on. And then we need a porch. Oh, and we need a driveway, we need a garage, and we need a garden and all those things. And when you step back, you look at your house and go, what? This wasn't part of the original plan. Why did we put the bedroom there and the bathroom there? And why is there the second floor, windows facing this direction? What's going on? That's what happens with programs. Even programs that are mandated, sometimes we make these changes as we're going through it and we don't step back and look at the big picture. And this is what happens.
You have to step back to see the bigger picture.
Absolutely. There's an echo in here. I like the echo. That's what I just said. All right.
And that's my WhatsApp.
The other thing is that notion of practice. Do we give people equal opportunities in our curriculum map to practice? Do we have those clinical opportunities? Are they stacked up at the end? Or does it make sense for students to get into a clinical setting in first year right away so they have a learning context? Or do we have it all, well, do we all just say in internship, they'll do it all, so we're not going to worry about it? And these are, again, questions that this group would come together and work through. We've already talked about this about 14 times. Are some outcomes covered more than others? In my teacher education program, the last time we did our curriculum map.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Is the map really like a map? Is
It's a map.
something like a drawing
Yes.
or?
I'm going to show you.
So a picture is worth 1,000 words,
Oh,
they
yes.
say.
And so a map is worth 100,000 words.
Yeah, so that will really help if you can,
Yep.
I mean, I can describe this room, it has the 4 walls, ceiling and so many fans, electric, this and that, but if I draw, it's very easy to comprehend.
Yes.
Very easy to understand.
Yep.
So I think if the map is in the form of a flow chart or a diagram, bar diagram, whatever, a table, that will be really easy. That will be really helpful.
She's busy making notes. I got this. Yeah, no, great. Yes. And that's why
Because
it's,
pictorial is important.
and that's why it's great. The other thing is that, oh no, I was telling you the story about my teacher education program. When we mapped it, we realized that there was a whole bunch of really basic Bloom's taxonomy, bottom line recall skills that we were teaching in every single course multiple times. And everyone was like, why are you doing that if I'm doing that and you're doing that? That makes absolutely no sense. So it gave us, by looking at the visual, a chance to see that we had really piled up a whole bunch of introductory material, but we weren't moving people. We weren't allowing them to grow as they moved through their program and through the map. So this is, again, really helpful for seeing those. As we are all now experts on learning outcomes, you'll understand what that is. Can we take people through the learning outcomes multiple times? So here's an example of where it does make sense to have them in different contexts, learning the same information. That's what you can see when you look at your map. Some of the ways that programs or institutions or universities engage in it. If you are starting a whole new program, maybe a whole new area of study in veterinary medicine, if you do your curriculum mapping in the beginning, it means you're going to come up with clear learning outcomes. You'll be able to see it. And that's kind of the dream. We don't always set up a lot of new programs, but when we do, if we have a curriculum map at the beginning, then we see where we're going. Even if if it's a 4-year program and we're starting with the first year, we can say, okay, we have the map, just like when we're driving. Okay, although the map is on our phone now. This is where we're headed. And we can determine whether we are successful as we slowly bring those classes into play. Yeah. Program accreditation, again, it's helpful to have this. It may not be asked for. A lot of times program accreditation, they give you a self-study package and you fill it out. This can be an appendix that you can provide until you can show people that you have engaged in reflection about your program. We do something called SPR, which is Systematic Program Review. Every 5 years, we have a program review where external people come in and interview and take a lot of qualitative data as well as quantitative data and survey people. So curriculum mapping is, in my world, a part of that. Program evaluation. This is again an area that I teach in, and logic modeling is a really helpful part of program evaluation, and a curriculum map can be a part of your logic model. It can help set things up. SIP is a particular program evaluation model, context, input, product, or process and product. But that's when I come back next time, I'll do 2 weeks on program evaluation instead. The other thing is when you engage, fear not, but you will have plenty of data. You're going to generate a lot. There's going to be a lot of work that happens. There are opportunities for everyone's voice and information to be a part of it, but it can be a little bit scary. It can give you an opportunity to really unpack what's going on in a way that maybe you haven't before. It also takes a lot of work to do a good job of curriculum mapping. Yeah. Right. Okay. So I asked everyone at the beginning of the week to bring a syllabus with them. Hopefully you have. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to just take a look at your syllabus and think about where it fits in the program. So if you think about your course and an imaginary map of where students are going through their program, where does it fit? And if it's clear you know where it fits, does it say so in your syllabus? So if a student reads your syllabus, do they know where this class belongs and why they're taking it? Have you written that into your syllabus? Have you made it clear to them why they're learning what they are learning at this point in time in your course? So those are the 3 questions I want you to reflect on. You look at your syllabus. If you didn't bring your syllabus with you, you can partner up with someone who has one and you can talk about theirs. Maybe on their phone.
राज बत्तरी कर लिया नहीं ट्रीटमेंट पे कंट्रोल पार्ट हैगा सी कंट्रोल पार्ट ते है ट्रीटमेंट ते है ਆਪਾਂ ਡਰੱਗਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਹੁਣ ਪੈਰਾਸਟੋਲ ਦੀ ਰਾਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਛੋਟ ਫਾਰਮਾਕੋਲੋਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਥੋੜਾ ਸਿੰਪਲ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਬੈਂਜ਼ੋਲੀਟਾਸ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਵੀ ਵੇਰ ਬੰਦਾ ਇਹ ਉਹਦੇ ਡੋਜ਼ ਰੇਟ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਮੈਡੀਸਨ ਵਾਲਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਬੈਟਰ ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਕਰੂੰਗਾ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੀ 220 ਮਿਲੀਗ੍ਰਾਮ 200 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 400 ਮਿਲੀਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਪਰ ਕੇਜੀ ਪਰ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਸ਼ੀਏਟਡ ਡਿਜ਼ੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਟਾਰਟਿੰਗ ਏਟੀਓਲੋਜੀ ਦੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਾਈਫ ਸਾਈਕਲ ਤੇ ਏਟੀਓਲੋਜੀ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਅਫਸਰ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਲਾਈਫ ਸਾਈਕਲ ਤੇ ਸੀ ਕੋ ਫਿਰ ਤਾਂ ਉਹੀ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਕਰ ਦੋ ਏਟੀਓਲੋਜੀ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਸੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਵੀ ਆ ट्रीटमेंट तो फिर भी एंड ही आती है ये 2 लाइनें ट्रीटमेंट आती है ऊपर ईडियोलॉजी लाइफ साइकिल ड्रग्स ਤੇ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀ ਰੋਸੇਲਿਨ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਇੰਟਰਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਕੀਤੀ ਉਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਰੋਸੇਲਿਨ ਤੇ ਵਿਟਾਮਿਨ ਸੀ ਸੀਰਮ ਚ ਦੇ ਹੀ ਰਹੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਬਲੱਡ ਲਾਭ ਨਹੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਰੋਲ ਹੈ ਇਹਦੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਵੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਦੋ ਇਹ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਬੋਲਣ ਦੇ ਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਦਿਓ ਜੇ ਆਹ ਜਾਨਵਰ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਵਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਰ
You have to go see your student?
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. Okay. Is this the mapping you're talking
Yes.
about?
Yeah. So that's a blank one, but we're gonna talk about that one.
So कोई चीज
ਫਾਰਮਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਜਾਏ ਸਾਡੇ ਚ ਜਾਏ ਮਾਈਕਰੋਬਾਇਓਲੋਜੀ ਕਿੰਨੇ
Yeah, I think
ਪੈਥੋਲੋਜੀ ਬਹੁਤ
पहले करवाया जी ਸਾਡੇ कंप्यूटर
yeah, I had
yeah this farm
ਕਈਆਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਤੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਕਾਫੀ ਆਈਆਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ
good. Glad you have that.
but it's too much
ਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਨਾ ਘਟ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੁਣ ਤੇ ਰਿਪੀਟ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਹੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ
Hey buddy, how you doing? You missed all the good stuff.
this time 93 पे कर रहे हैं touch 4 लाइन यार thank you 90 का 4 लाइन I need 1 more can you check के छोटा है कल छोटा है फार्मा पूरी पढ़ गया केडी ड्रग केडी क्लास च उन्होंने होनी है
ਬੱਚੇ ਤੇ ਆਣਾ ਯਾਰ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਾਹਮਣਾ ਕਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲੀ
ਆਪਣੀ
as compared to Western students, but 2 times more knowledge, but practically 2 times lesser.
ਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ
No? You don't agree?
ਨਾ
Then
ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਦਾ ਟੂਰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਗਿਆ 2009 ਬੈਚ ਦਾ
ਕਿੱਥੇ
ਰਿਕਾਰਡਿੰਗ ਬੰਦ ਕਰ ਦੇ ਯਾਰ
ਕਿੱਥੇ ਲੈ ਗਏ?
Take a little break afterwards. So who can answer these questions in terms of their syllabus? Do you know where? How many people here are confident that they know exactly where the courses that they teach fit? Yes.
Yeah,
You do,
yeah,
without hesitation.
yeah,
Good.
yeah, I know.
Is anyone not so confident about where it fits in? Because there are people that teach courses and they're like, I don't know where this goes. I don't know where, like I think somebody mentioned the other day, our students come to my class and they're supposed to know all of this and they don't. So I have to pre-teach it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So is that something that if people don't understand the important role that their particular course or that content has in the whole program, then it's really difficult for students to be successful if they're not addressing. All right. Does anybody have in their syllabus why this course is when it is or how it fits? Do you talk about that? Students. Hi. I haven't asked you a question yet. You've just been getting a free ride this morning. Have you ever had a class that when you read the syllabus, it says why you're taking it and where it fits in your program? Have you ever read that in a course syllabus? No? Do you ever wonder why you're taking a course when you're taking it?
Syllabus पढ़िया कदे?
Do you think?
Introduction part सारी किच होंदा नहीं?
वही point.
Yeah.
As the course, whatever has been taught initially. when
That's
I was
because
in
Muhammad
study,
class.
you will tell the importance of that. Your course was yes or no? Quite easy to answer.
Yeah.
Murmur.
So you do have a sense of why you're taking a course in second
competence.
year as opposed to third year? It makes sense to you? Clearly not. Okay, so that might be something that we do to let students know where they are in their program when they come into your classroom. So the reason why we're taking this is to reinforce this information or to introduce you to new information or to expand your understanding or give you an opportunity to apply what you're doing. That's how students buy in and become part of the curriculum mapping process. That's, I mean, kind of both of those do at the same time, but is there anyone here that might now add something like that to their syllabus? Or are you allowed to change your syllabus and add something like that? Or would it be a separate piece of paper that you might share with your students?
Well, we usually add on whatever is there because that is not sufficient. I mean, in fact, so whatever I feel students need, I do tell them.
Okay, good.
Actually, to improve this, under IDP project, we have prepared a wet orientation pack and they have prepared a internship manual. So those things were lacking, but now they are there so they can read. It clearly shows in first year what are the subjects they are there, but we may add some chapter about the outcome in the future edition, so that can be
I
done.
think in internship manual, there is outcome that what is
Outcome also
expected
there.
from them after completion of their internship, that this set of techniques they must learn during their internship.
So
Awesome.
those booklets are there, but means
Good.
just I think last year or last year we prepared.
2 years back.
Yeah,
Years back.
relatively
Yeah,
new.
so
Yeah.
it has all the activities, co-curricular activities from day one, what are the things they need, what are the facilities the university is providing to them, what are the hostel rooms, and so
Good.
the spectrum is there, it's a
पूछ
self-explanatory.
के देख लो.
Good semester and hostel rooms are there. So they have prepared that orientation pack, they have prepared internship manual, so some outcomes or learning efficiency might be added.
Did you get all that?
It's like
information?
this.
Have you seen it all? Yeah. Is that what I got an email today?
Yes.
Okay, I just got that email to me by the dean this morning, so I
These
have.
have been prepared.
Fabulous. So if they get that, then it would be really easy in your class to say, remember during orientation, the booklet that you got,
This is that.
Orientation
Learn procedure medicine.
when they are
Do they have hard sounds?
first year, but it
Hard sounds.
Murmurs,
whether these
gallop
are
rhythms.
open
Sir,
or these
ਇੰਨੀ
are-
ਬੇਸਿਕ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਇਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਜੋ 4th year ਦਾ VCP ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਦਾ ਸਾਰਾ
So it's there in this.
That's what I'm saying. It is.
But to know what is inside
I learned after postdoc from an
Yeah.
intern.
needs to be.
What is a murmur? Have you ever heard a murmur?
Okay.
Never. Nobody will. Okay.
is it gonna work?
Let us cool down.
I wanna know why this remote doesn't like me.
Change कर दे भाई slide.
ना किसी ने BSc इसका ही ना BSc ना PhD postdoc जाके मैं intern नहीं कर सकता.
Oh, there.
मरमर की हिंदी कितना सुनी थी.
So for my walk today, does anybody know where this tree is?
Bougainvillea? Yeah, it's Bougainvillea, the variegated variety.
He's in charge of the landscaping
Yes.
section.
Yes, it's in front of the president's.
Yeah,
building.
Vice Chancellor.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, Vice Chancellor's.
it's a very old tree,
Yeah, I loved it. Anyway,
might be 20 years old.
okay, go back to the tree. Not my break slide, so I'm glad you guys just came back because we're gonna take a break.
Okay.
We just had a really good discussion. I had an eye opener in terms of we talked about what's in the syllabus and what do the students know? Do they understand what's in the syllabus, where they fit? But your orientation manuals, both for internship and for the program, allude to that. Although the program one might not have the learning outcomes in it yet, but it sounds like it's gonna get changed right away, maybe by this afternoon. I'm just kidding. Anyway, that's a way that you can bring students into this mapping process and they understand, oh, that's why I'm taking this, that's where it fits. Okay, let's take, till 11:30, go for a little walk, 7 minutes, take a break.
Okay.
No. Can work. Hey, so when we're talking about curriculum mapping, I have mentioned a few times this idea of starting very simply and becoming more complex. Most times, though, people want as much data as possible. So if you're going to go through the process, it doesn't make sense to just have a few items collected. If you're going to do it anyway, you want to have, like any kind of research, you want to have good data, you want to have deep data, broad, trustworthy data. The most common one is to take an Excel spreadsheet and send it around to people and have them fill it out. So what I did today is you got an email from Gersher, I think, or from the dean's office. Somebody sent it around. Excel, they come, yeah.
No, Excel is there.
Yeah.
Not.
He didn't
email.
send.
Not
Oh,
in
I
the
thought you
email.
sent it out.
It's okay.
My apologies. All right. So if you want to bring the Excel file up, then I'll show you.
Excel is.
So this is a almost invisible, but a common version of what's going on. And if you want to go to the tab, bottom left tab, it says course descriptions. Thank you. You as a faculty member would likely get one of these for each of the courses that you're teaching. And the expectation would be that you would have that information and you would fill it out and then send it back to your dean or your associate dean or whoever was in charge of compiling them. So you can see what we've got here is the course description, just some basic information. So if that doesn't exist in a database, now the department is able to collect that and have it on file. And it's often really good to do this on a regular basis, just to have some of these small changes that have been made, almost like an address update available to you. If you go to the next tab that says assessments, here what you're doing is sharing what you are offering your students in terms of assessments in your class. So in this particular sheet, you've got a midterm, which is multiple choice and short answer, and a final exam, which is multiple choice and short answer. Are they formative or summative? In this case, they're not filled in. Are you doing other types of assessments? We talked about a variety of assessments or having a variety of assessments. Maybe you've got practical, you've got presentations, you've got video production, everyone's favorite from yesterday. All of those things can be included. And the idea is it formative? Is it allowing people to learn? Are you doing them repeatedly? Or is it that summative final piece of assessment and then the evaluation that goes with it, right? If you go to course outcomes, which is the next one, this is the list of specific learning outcomes for your course. This is where the curriculum mapping part of it is really, really important for the people who are compiling it. So they would come together, list your course on the larger map for the whole program, and then list those outcomes. Or the outcomes might be there and they might put a check mark under your course to say, yes, it's being taught in that particular class.
For undergrad only.
What's
For
that?
Undergraduate students, or undergraduate courses.
No, you can do them for all. I mean, it's really up to the dean if they want to do the curriculum mapping for the entire program, or just the undergrad or the graduate. Are
By the
you doing
way,
it all?
excuse me.
Yeah.
What is your definition of grad and undergrad? Theirs is different.
Okay,
We say DVM, that is undergrad.
Yeah.
You say it's grad, right?
yes,
So you should clarify.
yes.
I know
I'm
that.
using your description.
I know,
but I'm
I
just
know
saying
what you are
that's-
saying, but many people don't,
Yeah. but
because there's discrepancy. When we say,
It's irrelevant in this case because it's just what your course.
yeah, it's graduate,
Yeah.
ours is graduate. They say it's graduate, we say it's undergraduate, so it's the same thing, so be clear. BBSC को ये graduate
Previously,
UG नहीं बोलते, nothing.
Wait. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
It doesn't matter.
okay,
It's whatever the class is.
whatever.
So wherever it fits in the thing. So it doesn't matter if it's undergrad. Someone will come to you and say,
जब ये graduate बोलेंगे, okay,
whatever your class is, you will start with the name, the information, and you work across. And then it already exists in a particular program. So we're not making the change to the program. We're just saying, this is what I teach in this class. And most times we do all of the courses in our program. We might say that they're the graduate or undergraduate, depending on the program you're in, but you want to see what's being taught throughout the whole program. So in our case, our being here, you're collecting data on which programs?
undergrad,
Yes,
which is your grad? Which is your
I
graduate?
have both. I don't teach in a vet college.
Okay, in vet college, they've
So
got
I'm not
grad,
talking about my college at all.
Okay.
because mine doesn't apply here.
okay,
So when this is compiled, you can see that there's the list of competencies for the whole program. So that's the next one we went through. They won't all be in your course. So if they're all compiled in advance, when you get the spreadsheet, you'll be able to go to this section and go, oh, that's one that I teach, and copy it and paste it in and move it across. So you have the ability to not have to come up with those learning outcomes on your own. Hopefully that work has been done in advance. Okay, and I am assured by my colleague here that it has been done in this case as well. So that's the example of a really basic start to curriculum mapping. So you would have this email to you, and then you would go through and take the time and then send it back, and someone else would go through the data. I'm just trying to think if I need to go through the other ones. They just list that's an example. If you go to class 1, the next tab there beside competencies, that's where you can actually talk about what you teach in a particular class. It's almost like putting your lesson plan for that class in there. I don't find that as useful. I think that that's where we start to go over into far too granular as far as information go. I think stopping at competencies is really good. And then you are having useful information, because it doesn't really matter what you're doing. For the most part, if you've got your assessments in there and you've got the other information, that can all be mapped. Okay, so this is a tool that you might get. And if you don't have those competencies, or if you're not teaching them, or if you're doing co-curricular, because we've talked about co-curricular as well, you might add your own to that list of course outcomes. And because now you're all experts in creating course outcomes, because we practiced it yesterday, then you would be able to say, you know, in addition to what is expected of me in the competencies, my students will be able to do excellent presentations, or my students will be able to make wonderful videos, or whatever else might be a part of that. And then when it's compiled, then there will be not just the curricular, but the co-curricular as well. Is that helpful? Okay. Good. Yes. All right, can we go back to the PowerPoint then? So this is, as I mentioned, what you might get. So we just went through that example. And then what happens is they all just get copied and pasted into one big document. And if you go to the next slide, that's what it looks like. So it's a little bit ugly. It's a little bit hard to see.
it's beautiful.
It's very long.
It's done.
So you never have enough screen room. You're always scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, because depending on the number of learning outcomes you have in your entire program, there's a lot of information there. So it gives you and you asked earlier about what does the map look like? Well, this is the map. So you can see in this particular case, they've used letters, they've used color coding as well to determine where a particular learning outcome might fit. But it's there are a lot of cells. It's not just A1 and A2, it's AAA1, AAA2, it's all of that information that's added to it. And really, a lot of detail goes into creating this. And there are ways that you can compile and that you can track the number of occurrences in particular cells. Good. You're doing all that? Yes. All right. I'm just sure. And but it is a very complicated document. What that means is when you start to share it with people, you have to really, so if you have sent all of your information back on your classes and then they're compiled, when the big document goes back to people, you have to let them know the purpose of it and why you're sending them this massive file. We go to the next slide. This is where we're going beyond, bless you, Gesundheit. We go beyond simply putting them all together. In the first instance, you may just send them to a knowledgeable and talented set of grad students and they put them together. All right. In the second one, it may be your department chair, it may be the associate dean. Sometimes the dean does it. I know that sounds like not a good use of the dean's time, but I know deans who have been very interested in curriculum mapping, and they basically take all of these spreadsheets and copy and paste them together. They don't necessarily reach out to people for clarification. They may have their own ideas about what the program is supposed to look like. It is really just a combination of everything that's been provided and put together in the map. So it moves beyond the administrative support into a faculty member actually putting this together. And it is often then given to whichever department on your campus, which is in charge of storing them. This is an example of, okay, we did it. You can put a check mark beside our college or our department. We have done the work. We've given it to you. Now we don't ever want to do it again, or we don't want to have to do it again for 5 years. Not really super helpful, but a lot of times curriculum mapping stops at this point. It's basically like taking an inventory and submitting that inventory and really not taking it to the next step. So if you go to the next slide, or I guess maybe I can, is that me? Okay, next slide. I was trying the remote, but clearly it's not liking me again today. Same map, all right, but then it's filled in and then it's just set aside. If you go to the next slide, here's where things start to come together in a positive way. So rather than just simply send out blank documents for people to fill out, what you're doing now is you ask people to fill them out. You may compile them or have them on a master document, but then we get together and start to talk about it. So we've had some conversations here around the table today about, I feel that based on my knowledge of the program, bless you, times two, that we could maybe change some things around. So it gives you a common place to be able to make discussions, and the evidence is there. If we don't have that evidence, people say, I think we should have more of this, or I think, or I believe, or we should do more of this. When you've got it mapped out and you have that information in front of you and available, it's the hard evidence that people can look at. Now, it allows you to start to shift some things around. And if we go to, trying to think if I have that spreadsheet in one more time. If you go back one, just to show the ugly spreadsheet, please. Okay. Now what we can do is say, oh, in this particular cell, let's move that around. Let's make this a little bit different. Let's not introduce it here, but reinforce it. So it gives you that chance to start to manipulate your program without making a whole lot of changes. So if you move one thing and then everybody sits back and goes, okay, wait a minute, if we change that, then it has an impact there and it changes there. So let's move it back and we'll try something else. So it's a really interesting way of working through different combinations, permutations, salutations, and seeing how it changes your program without actually going through a very laborious process of designing and piloting classes and all that. It's that theoretical or that conceptual way of looking at it. And often when we get to this stage and we get together as a group, errors start to make themselves really clearly known. They will jump off the page at us and we will say, what? We have a massive gap in our program right here. Why are we not? And people start saying, well, again, I thought you were teaching it. No, I thought you were teaching it. I thought you were teaching it. Nobody has response. We have orphan learning outcomes in our program. So what that means is, can we add it to a course? Do we need a new course? Do we need those people to take a look at what's going on? Are we meeting the bare minimum so that our people who are coming to look at us are going to be happy? And then what are we doing beyond that? It's really important to be able to utilize this tool. If you go ahead one slide for sure, maybe another one. All right. So I may have already given you the answer to this, but Rashish, what do you think?
Third one.
The third one, right. And can you expand on why?
Means here we are together and then we can find out the gaps actually.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a way of us communicating, building those relationships, showing where the strong bonds are and or where they're not and where they're missing. Yes. So it was kind of, you all get 100% on that evaluation that we just did. It was pretty straightforward, but that's exactly it. We go to the next slide. Here are some things that if we are going to meet together and talk about it, the background or the homework that you need to do in advance. So we are lucky enough in many ways when you have a prescribed program that the learning outcomes are already there. But if they're not, then we have to step back and create those learning outcomes so that they can be added to the map so that we can send out that document. And there's nothing wrong with getting people together initially to do all that work before you even start to ask for data. Right at the beginning, everyone is kind of bought in and they're engaged in the process and they can be really helpful. So that is really good to do because you don't want to collect a whole bunch of data and then have people say, well, that's not what we do. And then someone says, well, yeah, that is what we do. Well, no, it's not. And then you get into an argument around, is it valid or not? So you can set a lot of your groundwork in advance by doing that. The other thing is that what makes a course or what makes a learning outcome reach a threshold. And I've worked on this before where we've mapped all kinds of different work that's gone on. And we have to say, do we give it an hour? So does it have to take up 4 hours of your total course time? Or does it have to have a certain number of credits to have that? What is that threshold or criteria? And we do a lot of things in our courses. We do a lot of work that we may only do 2 hours of or 1 hour of our entire course. Does that mean it's meeting the outcome? Or do we need to have 10 hours for it to qualify? So again, really good conversations in advance so that people know we do this work, but in this course, it's only introduced. It's not really addressing the outcome. But in the following one, we spend a lot of time and energy and effort making sure the students know what's going on. Then we can start to get into the idea of alignment. And probably the most important one there is assessments. So what kind of assessments are students doing? Are we consistent throughout? Do we use the same assessments or do we have some variety, maybe not within a course, but at least within a stream or content that people are working with? And the idea of experiences. So in this group, we do theory, we do clinical, right? We have that opportunity. Are we mapping our clinical stuff in a proper sequence? You had talked about saying people learn this information and then they may wait a long time to have a chance to apply it.
Yeah.
You know, have they lost their knowledge or the basic skills we started? Do we have to have a refresher, for example, before they move into it? The other thing is, what questions are you asking? You may say in a program, are we going to continue to offer this? Are we going to continue to offer this to the degree we are, or the amount? Do we reduce it? All of those questions are really good to have up front, and then they guide people as you go through the process and helps them make things makes sense to them or to their discipline. If you go to the next slide, granular analysis. So if we are looking at things at a program level, you can go to the next slide. Good questions to ask. Logical order. I've seen lots of really good debates. Do we introduce people to the big ideas right off the bat? Or do we wait until they understand and then we offer the big ideas? There's no right or wrong answer to that, but it's one that always comes up when we do curriculum mapping. We talk about key courses. Now, in this case, everybody takes the same courses, but in some programs you have electives and you have compulsory courses. In those compulsory courses, should they have the same learning outcomes in all of them? So you see them in different contexts. Or do we rely on one course to teach the really important foundational material? The idea of multiple offerings of the same course. So if you have multiple sections, for example, is everyone who's teaching that section on board? Or does one do it a little bit differently? And does one think, oh no, I know we should teach that, but it's really not important. I want to teach you this. That can be a real barrier and a real unfortunate thing for students when faculty make decisions and pull material that has to be in a particular sequence and they decide not to teach it. And then it comes back to what was said earlier about my students are supposed to know this, and they showed up and I asked them and they're like, no, we didn't do that last year. And you're thinking, what? Well, how can I progress without that knowledge, without you being able to apply that skill? Again, my own experience is, why do we focus on a couple of things so much in every class when we could be using that time more wisely to help people grow and develop? The other thing, how do we introduce them? One at a time, all at once, slowly? Is there an overlap where we introduce one, they start to get mastery, and then we introduce the next important one, and then so they stagger or they stack on one another? Next slide. It is full of questions. We get excited about those core concepts or those threshold concepts, and sometimes we rush our students into it. So if we look at those learning outcomes and they're intended to be on Bloom's taxonomy, the synthesis and the analysis, but we have them in an introductory class, does that make any sense at all? Or do we need to build competence and confidence in our learners before we are able to do that? Does everybody get practice before being assessed or before being evaluated, before they are crispified? You have to make sure that they're doing that so that they get an opportunity to be successful. And looking at the map will be really clear. It'll show you, okay, we do this. Oh, okay. There's that opportunity to practice and get formative feedback. And then we talked about electives, but again, electives for undergrads aren't really an issue in this case. But if you do have that, if you offer co-curricular, does everybody get the co-curricular, or is it a certain group of people? So it will show up on your map. Next slide, please. All right, so you're ready to see some basic curriculum maps? Next slide, please. So there you go. If you are thinking about your learning outcomes, and this is a very limited number of learning outcomes, and all you have to do is say, do we teach them? Well, the first one, we teach that in course number 1 and course number 2. Good. Learning outcome 2 is taught in course 2. Learning outcome 3 is in course number 1 and course number 3. And you might be happy with that. It just shows you where those themes and ideas are being addressed. Do you think you can go very far with this knowledge? Maybe. It may be a good start to do some major renovations. But if you go to the next slide, it's just a simple map. It's very simple. It is sometimes good to have that as your starting point, because then people see themselves in the program, because we identify with our areas of teaching and with our courses, and they would look at that and say, yes, in year 1, that's me. That's my course. And in year 3, I'm glad that that's your course. And in year 4, I'm glad that that's your course. Very high level, and a good opportunity to look at, are there gaps? So if you go backwards, the previous slide,
Go back.
yeah, maybe you want to introduce all of those 3 learning outcomes in the first course. So that might be a gap for you. Or maybe the learning outcomes 1 and 2, or sorry, outcome 2 relies on being proficient in the first learning outcomes before you introduce it. So it's however you have structured that information. But you may look at this and say, I'm confident that my students will be able to then progress through based on the way that we've got it, or I'm not confident. Or I would say, wait a minute, what about learning outcomes 4 and 5? We don't even have those on there. Hopefully you've done that work in advance, but you may find that you get to this stage and people say we're missing something, and it can be helpful. If you go 2 slides ahead, there you go. This is the next thing we need to think about. So the X's or the check marks are helpful, but it's even better to see what level of engagement is happening on that spreadsheet. So is it just the introduction of the outcome, and do we keep introducing it? Or do we then move forward? Sometimes the introduction part only has to happen briefly in one class, and what we're doing is a lot of developing. So we want to see formative, going back, understanding what's going on. We have to have definitions like this to make sure that people understand what we mean when we're talking about developing and what we mean by introduction and advanced. Often the advanced work happens at the end of the program. That makes sense. But maybe it's a really basic learning outcome that people can be introduced to, practice, and then boom, they're through it in 3 classes as opposed to 3 years. It's not unheard of to do that, but you need to have that shared language so that people are looking at the map and going, yeah, that makes sense. If you go to the next slide, a little more complex. So now what we're doing is we're talking about the course. So along the top, we would have the actual course name, the program they're in, the particular learning experience or activity. And then you can see we've got another scale here. This is called the IRMA scale. So the Introduction, Reinforced, Mastery, and Advanced, or CEST rather. And you can see now where those learning outcomes are. Okay, I see what's going on there. What about learning outcome 2? Is there something that seems strange there?
Yeah, there's only,
Yeah,
I mean, only developing.
yeah, it's not introduced.
It's not
You're
introduced.
reinforcing it right away. So what are you reinforcing? So if I look at that, I say, I think there's a gap there.
Mm.
Now, does it mean it can't happen in the second course? Sure it can. And we would shift that where it is in the middle. Yeah, absolutely. Whereas learning outcome 3, you introduce it or you expose people to it. And then by the third one, you're already asking them to master it. So that might be another red flag for you. It might be another thing that says, wait a minute. Maybe we should take a look at this. And again, it's easy to move things around and say, oh, okay, I'm comfortable with where we are now. If you go to the next slide, okay, here's our example. So we can take a look at it. And in that far column, we can actually total up how many outcomes are happening in particular courses, for example. So we can see the top course that we've got there, lots of learning outcomes are being addressed. And so that might be an introductory course. And again, I apologize for the font. It's pretty tiny. But then there are other courses where the third one down, you see you address an outcome there, and then you don't do anything with the others. So they've already been introduced in another class. There's no need to have that reinforcement. Maybe that happens at another time. In that far right column, do you want each class to have the same number of outcomes? Well, probably not. There may be people that say, well, everybody should teach the same amount all the time. But maybe you spend more time. Maybe the pharmacology one has, like you said, too many there. Maybe it's a chance to back off and then redistribute those course hours or those opportunities. If you go to the next slide. Now we start thinking about assessment. So we've gone from, does the course exist in our world, to when are those learning outcomes being offered? And now we're starting to add assessment to our curriculum map as well. So if you go, I'm just going to scoot past this one to show you what it looks like on the next slide. So how are we assessing them? So we can actually map the assessment that takes place, and we can say, hey, there's a good variety there. How do we know if they're achieving learning outcome 1? Well, in the first class, we ask them to write a reflective essay. And then in the second class, we're going to give them an exam. And then they have built up their skill set to the point where now we can give them a case study and they can do the synthesis and analysis on it. So they are getting to that point where they can master that particular learning outcome through the different assessments that we do. Second one, you can see they start with a paper, and then they take that knowledge and they could collectively leverage it with a group work. And then maybe that group then provides an oral presentation. So it's really, this is the magic of the curriculum mapping, as it shows you how the assessment then builds people's understanding and how they begin to get better at those things through the assessment choices you make. So it's a really significant way of applying assessment to get to those learning outcomes. Okay, if you want to skip ahead 2 slides. Yes. So this is the next thing. We start to add where, this question is bug flying around, where that bug has been here all week. It must be very knowledgeable at curriculum now. Yes, it's the season, it's bug season. I had a gecko on my wall last night, or a lizard crawl across my wall. So apparently it's lizard season too. Scared the heck out of me. The next layer we add to it is, how do we break it down based on the program? So if you go to the next slide, you can see learning outcome 1, we want it in our general education or our majors or our co-curricular, or maybe it's required for licensing because our graduates need to go through a particular licensing body. So we are taking that basic work and we're making a very big leap here, but it's showing you where we can concentrate those learning outcomes. Now, the nice thing is that we've only got 3 on here. We don't have 400 or whatever. So this seems manageable, but if you can think about your entire program and all the learning outcomes, it really scales up. And so we need to find ways of determining how we connect these cells together. If you take general education and major courses and collapse them because it's maybe not relevant, but now we've added that notion of co-curricular, or we've added that notion of an external body coming in and having an impact of what's going on. And we can say, wait a minute, what's the national licensing organization in India?
Right there, VCI.
Okay. So you would make sure that you had all of their minimum requirements connected to your learning outcomes so that you don't get surprised. And
by what?
By students graduating from your program and then you going, oh, wait a minute, we forgot.
In your country, they have got, after the degree, they cannot practice, they have to take that exam.
Yeah.
Here we don't have that.
Yeah. Well, we have, for people who are teachers, they have praxis. When they're done, they are automatically, like, we are given permission by our government to say, as a student graduates, they have met all the requirements. So that's been downloaded to us. And we had 1 year where we had students, 160 students missed 1 class that they needed. So if we would have had this map, we would have been, wait a minute, because someone talked to someone who talked to someone and said, no, they don't need that class. It's okay. So we had to offer 4 emergency sections of a course in the summertime so that all of our graduates could be teaching and getting paid in the classroom in the fall. So it was an example of where curriculum mapping would have been very helpful. And we would have had a document that we could go to.
That is in the
reference.
In your education department, in the vet school.
Yeah.
They don't have like that.
No.
You have to complete the degree. It doesn't mean you're a doctor.
Yes.
You have to take that
Write
exam.
your exam.
Right.
Yeah. So again, you want to make sure that you're covering that, whether you're the one who is giving the blessing or that they write that exam and they need to know what's going on. to make sure that content is there. Next slide. So a lot of what we've talked about is very procedural, but we want to know what we can do with it once we've got through that procedure. So maybe we have filled up our spreadsheet and we are seeing where our learning outcomes are mapping. We see where our assessment is. We've identified gaps, but we need to now move on from that. So if you go to the next slide, these are some of the really good, helpful community building aspects of curriculum mapping. So conversation and communication. I've said it before, I'll say it again, reinforce it because it's important that we need to talk about what we're doing so we have a common understanding. We also have to, or we can use it to see what our program values. So values are often not written into course outcomes, or they're not written into standards or whatnot, but we would look at our curriculum map and go, you know what we value is lots of practice, or we value lots of formative assessment, and we can articulate that and say, based on how we have mapped out the activities we do, this shows what we value.
Compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. Compassion might be one of the values. Maybe we give people more time or the opportunity to go back and
Sciences, veterinary science, compassion, ethics.
Yeah.
The big.
That notion of change in knowledge. So you talked about your rusty equipment that you have to keep going for when the evaluators come by. Curriculum mapping shows you where you're doing other things that maybe fall outside of the expectation, maybe in a co-curricular way. Or you may say in our field, our students are coming to us from their internship and they're saying, the farmers, the ranchers that we work with need this. Well, let's look at our curriculum map. Well, we don't have that. So how do we fit it in? And whether we're doing it as beyond the minimum standards, or it's something that we need to communicate to make change. Whenever we redesign, and I know that's, if you had one wish, it would be to redesign your curriculum and have more control over it.
Yeah.
When it happens, I'm optimistic, glass is full. When it happens, you will have gone through this curriculum mapping process and you will have that information. It will help you. It will help you see those opportunities for growth and innovation. It also shows you how you can prioritize and have a conversation around what, not just from a values perspective, but from an educational perspective, are you prioritizing? Are you prioritizing experiential learning or hands-on learning? Are you prioritizing deep theory? All of those things will come out of your curriculum map. The other thing is that interdisciplinary work. So if a learning outcome fits in your section, but it also fits in another section, then you can say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we could talk about this. We don't normally get together and discuss, but you and I are in different parts of the college or in the university, and we teach the same thing. Maybe we can find ways to leverage those, or maybe we could share what we're doing so that our level of expertise starts to increase. Last slide.
Great.
Yes. With 6 minutes to spare. Mapping is as much about the process of seeing relationships. So it may feel like we are doing, compiling, filling in spreadsheets. What you're doing is you're showing those relationships and you're strengthening those relationships. You're talking about what's going on. You are sharing collectively. And those first two examples of ways people do it are put together when it's just a hoop that somebody needs to jump through or a checklist, and it's not maximizing the value that you get out of your curriculum mapping. When you go through this process together, when you talk about it, when you share your experiences, what it means is a better opportunity for your students, a better opportunity for them to learn, a better overall program as well.
Thank you.
Mic drop.
Thank you. Great.
There you go. And as promised,
12:30.
12:25.
Yeah.
Go enjoy your extended lunch hour.
And
We'll see you back here at 2:30.
no, 3.
2:30.
2:30 to 4. Okay, I've got some
There you go.
work.
2:30 to 4 there. I've been given
No.
my marching orders. Yeah.
No, I've got some.
Okay.